Hello, welcome to another episode of Decentral Lounge, brought to you by Global Stake, your institutional, truly decentralized, self-owned and managed SOC 2 Type 2 compliant bare metal staking service provider. Today, we're excited to host John Paul Thorbinson, aka JPThor, the co-founder of THORChain. With a background in building and seemingly boundless energy, JP and THORChain have tackled some of the biggest problems in the Web3 industry. Recognizing the need for digital assets to be swapped in a decentralized cross-chain manner, JP and others set out to build a unique solution with the Cosmos SDK. Today, we'll dive in to learn more about this journey, the progress of THORChain, as well as new tools he's producing, such as the highly secure seedless VaultSig wallet that can hold virtually any digital asset. JP, thanks for joining us today. Welcome to the show. Why don't we start by telling the audience a little bit more about your background and what brought you to the blockchain world?
Sure. So grew up in Northern Territory, Australia. I studied aeronautical engineering. I joined the Air Force. I flew fighters and bombers for 10 years. Towards the end of that, I started getting bored and I discovered Bitcoin. And I was poking around at the side with Bitcoin wallets. Got my Bitcoin rugged off me by the FBI when they took down BTC.com back in 2014. And got various apps kicked out of the App Store by Apple because they were banning Bitcoin wallets back then. I quit the Air Force, resigned, and I decided to go all in crypto because I recognized it was going to be the future of money and I didn't want to get left behind. So in 2016-17, I started hacking in the Ethereum community. And in 2018, I realized that the most important thing I could do was to build decentralized liquidity. So in January 2018, I began building it.
Well, tell us a little bit more about THORChain. I mean, people hear the name sometimes, they don't necessarily understand what THORChain is or how it works. And there's a lot of interesting things that are happening in terms of just the progress, whether it's the nodes and what they can earn and everything else. And I'm sure we'll get into some other parts of what's being built on top of THORChain now.
Sure. So THORChain allows you to swap Bitcoin to ETH. Simple as that. As a user, you send your Bitcoin to a vault. The protocol recognizes that deposit, accounts for it in a system, swaps it to ETH via a network of liquidity pools, and then delegates that outgoing ETH transaction to a set of nodes. Those nodes get together, sign an MPC transaction, and then out it goes to you. But to do that with today almost 120 nodes, anonymous, fully bonded network, fully permissionless, no interface, and to be running in a high entropy environment connected to all these blockchains, which each of them have all the crazy nuances and asynchronicity. Was very difficult. It took 6 years to build, but we persevered. And today it is the largest decentralized liquidity protocol in the world. It has almost a monopoly on-chain, cross-chain flows on the particularly like BTC, ETH flows and stablecoin flows directly into wallets. So wallets choose to integrate THORChain because it's the only swap provider for decentralized liquidity. And looking out beyond 2025 and beyond, it's a very exciting roadmap.
It is, and I guess maybe we could dive in a little bit about that roadmap because famously you came in sort of and sort of saved what was known as Kujira Network, for instance. It was something that as a personal user, I was a big fan of. I loved sort of the all-encompassing DeFi suite of tools, but now it's been rebranded as Rujira and Ruji to kind of go along with the Rune name. So can you tell us a little bit more about what the app layer is that's going to be built on top of THORChain and how this is going to change the game for the entire ecosystem?
Sure. For the last 6 years, we have been trying to build DeFi primitives at the base layer, but it's complex, it's slow, high. There's a bottleneck being developer sign off, and a lot of the code on the base layers is very dangerous code because it's directly manages vaults and slashing and various other things. So instead, we had a chance to upgrade the network this year to the latest Cosmos SDK, which comes with an expressive app layer, Cosmos. And we could have just launched it to a room to crickets. But at the same time, Kujira was suffering solvency problems in about July. And I was ready and in the M&A mode. So I bailed out a large debt position, and the proviso was that the Kujira team would migrate the entire chain and community to THORChain. And Kujira have been building a suite of DeFi apps on a Cosmos SDK chain. So it was the perfect candidate to come over. And in return, they'll get access, ring-fence access to THORChain's baseline liquidity, and they can build this separate app layer on top with a separate cash flow asset, separate builder community. And that's where we're at. So we are weeks/1 month away from launching the very first part of this app layer. And Q1 next year, we'll see perps, order books, lending, more, all come and built on the app layer.
Crazy. I can't wait to see it, honestly, as a big fan of Kujira. And I've never even used, I know Levon is being folded in there too to take care of the perps. So really excited to see what this looks like in a unified interface that's going to be running on top of THORChain. Speaking of wallets, because you mentioned about how that sort of the go-to for THORChain, where a lot of wallet integrations, because you can do all these swaps in a decentralized manner. One of the things that you've really been working on and talking about a lot is multi-sig. So this is not like any other wallet. I think people just hear the word wallet a lot of times and they think of just, a MetaMask or typical thing where you have a seed phrase and, you got to copy down your 12 or 24 words and keep them someplace secure and so on and so forth. And then there's even been a new iteration above that where you don't necessarily need a seed phrase with things like, it was obviously developed with Sonar, for instance, on Kujira. You had a similar thing with Coinbase Wallet and some of these others where you use passkeys that allow you to then access the wallet. But multisig even goes beyond that in a lot of different ways. So I'm curious if you can explain basically not only the feature set of multisig, but what makes it so unique and so secure compared to every other wallet out there.
Sure. So I set up a year ago. I raised a fund, and I was looking at the multi-sigs for Solana. It's a self-custody fund: Solana, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and THORChain, and they all sucked. They all required hardware wallets and different apps. And I realized we'd already built the solution, TSS, running on THORChain, and all we have to do is take that MPC protocol and put it in a retail app. And what it does is allows you to create a vault, an MPC vault, using 2 or more of your devices, and then you can sign outgoing transactions from that vault. We have shipped an iOS app, Android app, Mac app, Windows app, soon to be Linux app, a Chrome extension, and more. And there's no private keys. If you generate the vault correctly and you store your vault shares around between different devices, and it's actually safe to like even email or DM me in Twitter or Telegram. It actually doesn't matter. I actually have an unencrypted vault share on my Twitter that is linked to $250,000 in funds. And obviously I've got the other vault share somewhere. So you need 2 vault shares to access it. So there's an unencrypted vault share on my Twitter, literally on my Twitter page. And it's so safe because you would never even dream of like even emailing yourself a vault private key. That's completely irresponsible. But these vault shares allow you to, you don't need hardware wallets. They're not single sig. You have a Chrome extension, so you have full access to all DeFi. So you can, finally, it's like a retail friendly custodial solution that doesn't involve complex hardware. It's not security through obscurity, where you have like a proprietary hardware device and you keep them on lock and key. It's just security through the law of large numbers. And, I can fly around the world with my MacBook and my phone and a burner phone and have them all locked down with biometrics and Apple security and Google security, and have my vault shares stored on different cloud storage like Google Drive, iCloud, Proton Drive. And anywhere in the world, I can lose a device and doesn't even bother me. But if I accidentally leave a ledger at an airport, I'm immediately nuking that ledger and moving the funds out. So it's a retail-friendly, usable, multi-chain, multi-factor vault.
It is really easy to use. I don't have my other phone near me because I have my primary phone that I first downloaded it on. And then I have a backup old phone that I use for spaces on X and so on and so forth. And it's literally only on the Wi-Fi in my house. And I use that as my backup to have the second share for the signing and so on and so forth. And I just love how, right when you first download it, you sort of see how it has that multi-chain nature built in. It's got Bitcoin, ETH, Rune,
Yeah, we chose those 4 chains, the default chains, to specifically show you it can do. I think the default chains are Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, THORChain, to specifically show to you it can do it all.
I forgot about Solana being on there. Well, it's really incredible what you guys are building. So tell us, just looking out at the future, some trends.
Yeah, that's a good next question. My vision for the future of the next 5 to 10 years is to build the stack, right? And the stack is a multi-chain, multi-factor, self-custodial solution that it's safe to keep your money online. So for the last 10 years, you've been told, put your private keys, write them down on a piece of paper, stick them on your bed, keep your hardware wallet cold, keep it all offline. But that's going to slow you down, especially when you're going to have to like start battling with the bots. And how can you safely keep money online? Well, take THORChain. THORChain is connected to the internet 24/7 with 120 anonymous nodes. And we've shown to the world that you can store $1 billion in a MPC network and use economics to keep the funding safe. So every THORChain node has a gun pointed at every other node and saying, look, let's just follow the rules and we won't steal. We can't steal unless we clue. So that's the same with MPC. You can safely keep money fully attached to the internet using the law of large numbers. Done. That's all it is. And so that's the self-custodial solution. And it's going to wrap Ruji, which is this fully connected, expressive DeFi app layer, giving you all the DeFi app primitives in an amazing UX layer, which is then going to wrap THORChain, which is this cross-chain liquidity network, which services the major chains. And that's the stack. That's the Voltisig, Ruji, THORChain stack is what's going to take us to the promised land. And if you think about it, right, JP Morgan is a 100-year-old financial institution, longer, has something like 300,000 staff, and it makes 10, 20, $30 billion of revenue a year, depending. But Binance Coinbase is worth like 100B, and they make like 10B revenue a year, but they've only got 3,000 staff. So within a factor, they are 100 times more efficient as a financial institution. Binance and Coinbase, make no mistake, are financial institutions that fundamentally can offer the same things that JP Morgan and the big old banks can, right? Except they're just 100 times more efficient. But they still have to be regulated. They still have rooms full of lawyers and accountants and customer service and blah blah blah, right? And they still have bank accounts and email servers and HTTPS, blah blah blah, right? So what is the true decentral? And by the way, when you deposit into Binance, you're depositing into a giant database. It's not decentralized at all. So then what is next? What's banking 3.0? Make no mistake, THORChain is banking 3.0. It is a completely top to bottom decentralized protocol that is a financial institution that is supranational, doesn't exist anywhere. And like you could say THORChain has 10 to 20 staff-ish, maybe, the devs, and it makes 100 million a year, soon to 10x, right? So you could say THORChain itself is 10 to 100 times more efficient than Binance and Coinbase, which they themselves are 10 to 100 times more efficient than JP Morgan. So that's where we're headed, for sure. And the protocol that wins this does not exist in as a white paper today or a testnet today. The protocol that's going to win this is going to win this because they've been in the arena, they've battled all the adversity, they've solved all the problems. They have a moat of liquidity, of nodes, of mindshare, of integrations, and a fully featured stack that's decentralized appropriately at every level. That protocol stands alone today, and it's THORChain. So as long as we keep executing, we're not complacent, we double down on security, we double down on integrations, we double down on the feature set, roll it out. The next 5 to 10 years is the Bifrost to Valhalla. It's so simple to me.
Well, it's interesting just hearing you talk, and this is one of the things I definitely want to work into our conversation today is the book, Excel. And I started reading it. I haven't finished reading it yet. But when I hear you talk, especially about THORChain and all the development, I keep thinking of this core idea in the book that you talk about, accelerationism, and just how like what you constantly are saying, excel or die, right? Like it's something that it's even beyond building. It kind of evokes this flywheel, this sense of momentum, this sort of shift that's happening under our feet. You know, you look at, for instance, the recent elections here in the United States. You kind of feel the momentum is shifting across the entire Web3 industry, because we know that there's probably going to be regulatory clarity. So, you know, tell us, if you want to spend a couple minutes just talking about like the book, why you wrote it, how this influences your thinking and your building style and everything else. And
Yeah, so I've been lucky to fully arc wealth. You know, in 2016, I'd sold my house, sold my car, and I'd left the Air Force and I'd joined crypto. And I literally had nothing. I had a Bitcoin in my wallet. I had a backpack, and I would ride a skateboard to my co-working space, my WeWork, where I was building THORChain here in Melbourne. But I was extremely productive. And in the Air Force as well, previously for 10 years, extremely productive, flying fighters and training up to that. And then obviously in the 2021 cycle, because I've been in crypto for so long, and finally I, you know, made a lot of liquidity, right? And so I took 12 months off, because I've been building in crypto for 10 years, and I was getting, especially post-COVID, I was just like, let me loose, right? So I took 12 months off. And in that time, I found I lost a lot of productivity because I was just in a consumption do loop. You know, I'd go to fancy vacations and, you know, buying fancy cars and flying helicopters around the world and blah, 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 not really focusing. And then I realized towards the end of last year that the most important thing I missed was my productivity, was contributing to the world in useful way. I just spent 12 months not really being useful. I just enjoying life and not really doing anything. And I got to the end of the year going, this is the most unsatisfying thing I've ever, like, in my entire life, experienced, because I haven't done anything for an entire year, right? Haven't meaningfully contributed to humanity. So I kind of wrestled with that for a couple of months, and I was getting into the EAC crowd, the effective accelerationism crowd. And I kind of wrestled with the idea of, why do we need to be productive? Why do we need to be useful? And what drives that? And I realized that it's actually a billion years of evolution that have driven us to, you know, stare down the universe, observe it, learn from it, and pass useful information forward through genetic pathways and now mimetic pathways. And then I have the privilege of flying at 50,000 feet in a jet. And at 50,000 feet, you can see the curvature of the Earth. It's, you know, I think Armstrong line is at 65,000 feet, and, you know, the top of the atmosphere is 100,000 feet. So it's definitely up there. It's a lot higher than a commercial airliner. And you're up there by yourself, right? You're just looking out and you can see that big curve. So I have this kind of really good perspective to, like, think big and to view the world as a small place. And in looking back a billion years to recognize where we've come from, because I was wrestling with the idea of being useful and my own purpose of, because you get to the end of it, like, you got all this wealth, and, well, then what are you going to do? You kind of answer that question. And so then I had to look the next billion years forward. That's the next logical thing to do. And it was clear to me that the bots are coming, and everyone was asking me at the time, do you think the bots are going to kill us? AI is going to kill us, for the AI doomerism. And so I had to go away and wrestle with what that meant. Are the bots going to kill us, and why, and how can we not prevent that happening? So I carved out all these ideas and I put them in, wrote down a manuscript, and I worked with a couple of buddies to write that book, to just get it out on paper. Because I did spend a bit of time thinking about it. And now it actually is what fundamentally drives me now, because I believe it. You know, our purpose is to observe the universe, learn from it, and pass useful information around us. And you hope that if it's useful, genetically or mimetically, that it's going to get replicated and propagated. So set the means free, build in public, let the market accept your ideas, and may the best ideas win and the bad ideas will die. But we should strive to build highly potent memes with a long half-life, or genes, so have kids, right? And highly potent memes with a long half-life kind of sets my vision now. Like, what can I do today that will release information to the wild that is new and built upon the foundation of everything that I observe around me, that will still be here in 5 years, 10 years, 100 years? That's what you should be thinking. That's what everyone, like, can you create a meme today that will still be around here in 100 years? Well, it has to be useful. Then I'll get replicated and propagated. So that drives me and my decision-making today. That THORChain, the stack that I'm building, helping build now, THORChain, Ruji, VaultC, are all very useful, in my opinion. And I need to spend a lot of time and effort onto them to contribute to humanity, so that in 5 to 10 years time, you and the bots are using it, and in 20 years time, you will remember my name. 200 years, maybe 2,000 years, who knows? Well, people are definitely going to remember Elon in 200 years, maybe even in 2,000 years. But are they going to remember you in 200 years, 20 years? Who knows?
I'll definitely remember you, JP, for sure. That was an incredible sort of philosophical capstone to our conversation today. For those who are watching, if they wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach out to talk to you specifically, or to get in touch with the broader THORChain community, the Rootg community? What's the best way to get in touch?
Unfortunately, for my anxiety levels, I like to keep inbox 0. So if you DM me, I will read it, because I don't like red bubbles or unread messages. And if it's interesting, I will respond. So reach out to me on Telegram or Twitter or whatever. Any of my handles will work. I monitor all my inboxes myself. And let's go build it. Let's go build what we think is going to be useful for humanity. Yeah. And, I wake up every day and I'm very comfortable that what I'm doing is right, the right thing, right? And we're building it correctly. I'm not saying we have made mistakes. We've made many mistakes, but that's part of learning iteratively, is you do have to make mistakes to go, okay, we're not going to optimize in that direction. We're going to shift strategy and go in that direction. And that's part of like what Elon's doing with his, very publicly with his Starship. Like, he's willing to make very expensive, very public mistakes, but he doesn't care, because he wants to get us to Mars. So he views and making mistakes as part of just the iteration process. So I'm not afraid of making mistakes. I try to optimize for success. But I fundamentally believe in what I'm doing. And today, THORChain has done over 120 billion in cross-chain flows. It's got almost a monopoly on the cross-chain flows and more wallets. It makes 100 million a year, 120 million a year more. I think yesterday I made 200 million annualized earnings. These numbers are all going to 10x over this cycle. So today the protocol's worth 2B. And I think this cycle and next, all these numbers are going to go 10x as long as you keep executing and not being complacent. The protocol makes yield. It's 100% fee switch, and it delivers that yield to its node operators who provide security, its liquidity providers who provide liquidity, and its contributors who maintain stability. Right? That's all it does. And it makes exogenous yield as well, as in like external yield. People pay money. Like, it makes $500,000 a day in fees that people pay into the system, and it redistributes it to its participants. Anyone can join it. Anyone can be a node, anyone can be an LP, and anyone can apply to be a dev. Simple as that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, JP, for taking the time. This was an incredible conversation. For those of you who are watching or listening to today's episode, we'll be sure to link the information for JP if you wanted to try and reach out and get a hold of him. We'll also drop the link to his book, so that way you can check it out. I'm looking forward to trying finishing up this weekend. Totally with you 100% of the way, JP. Thanks to everybody who's watching. We'll see you next time on the next episode of Decentral Lounge. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Ryan.